Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is The Thriller from Georgia. This is spoken in the English and Georgian language, released in the year 2015, directed by Levan Bakir, and this film is called Landmine Goes Click. So Landmine Goes Click is set in the beautiful picturesque countryside of Georgia. This is a country that has had a lot of trouble in the past with the Georgian War, but it's a country that's looking to rebuild itself. So this is the destination for a group of American tourists. Now two of these tourists are actually going to get married the following week, so they're using this time to relax and basically contemplate what they're going to do with their lives. But unfortunately the next day the male basically stands on a landmine. Now these landmines had been cleared since the Georgian War days, but unfortunately there are a few that are still around, and unfortunately for this guy he's actually picked one of them. So if he releases the pressure he's going to explode. They're in the very remote area, so help is not around for many miles. So they don't know what they're going to do, and then all of a sudden a local comes along. Now they think that this local is friendly enough and that he might help them, but he actually, when he realises the situation, he actually takes advantage of this and he sets his sights on this female. And the guy that basically loves this female can't do anything about it. So it's about to go very dark very quickly, and to prevent myself from giving away anything else, if you like the way that this film sounds, you're going to have to go and see it for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Landmine Goes Click. Don't let the title give you judgment on whether or not you're going to see it, because Landmine Goes Click, it's a ridiculous title, but I actually thought for the first half of the film it was a lot more serious than you would anticipate. I thought this is a movie that showed you the beauty of Georgia. It showed you a country that was rebuilding itself, but then it also shows you that the past of Georgia is going to have a present day effect on these tourists. And so I thought there was a lot of tension, there was a lot of suspense. You know, this guy who stood on the landmine, if he releases the pressure he's going to explode, and you don't know whether or not this landmine is going to explode at any second. So that tension and the edge of your seat sort of thrilling aspect of the film I actually thought was delivered very well. I thought the cinematography was absolutely beautiful, but you always think that something very unsettling is going to happen. So you're marvelling at the beauty, but at the same time you think that, okay, there is something in my gut that's telling me that something is going to go horribly wrong, and that is down to the soundtrack. It's a very haunting and unsettling soundtrack, and it's just the overall gloomy feel that the film has. So I love the films that use beauty with ugliness at the same time. So you can't marvel completely at the beauty of this landscape, because, as I said, the heart of this film is actually quite dark. So you know something bad is around the corner. And that is the characteristic of a lot of European films, and it's no different in this movie. I thought the acting was fairly decent. I thought that the female was the weaker of the two. You know, you've got this male who's actually on the landmine, played by Sterling Knight. Now, he is associated with a lot of teenage adolescent films. I'm not actually familiar with this guy, but I was expecting something of a much lesser standard. I thought he was okay, and I could actually absorb myself into the situation for the first half. And then you've got the local, who was played by a local Georgian, and he was actually very good, very sinister. As I said, at the start he feels as though you feel as though he's there to help, but you feel that something's a little bit off, and when his character starts to evolve into someone completely different, you can feel that helpless situation, and you're constantly asking yourself as a viewer, what would you do in a situation like this? And ultimately the answer is nothing, because if he stands off the landmine, he blows up. If he stands on the landmine, he has to watch his girlfriend go through horrible things. So that is basically the horrific sort of element to this film, is that the sheer hopelessness of the actual situation that is going from bad to very bad quickly, and there's not a thing in the world that you can do about it. So the first half of this film, very well done. The tension is through the roof, but then unfortunately around the halfway point, some side elements start to come into it, and this is where it starts to get ridiculous. Now, why did it need these sort of twists and these little elements thrown into it to make it a generic film? Is because it would have been great if it was just about this guy stood on a landmine and then all of a sudden things are going very bad, but unfortunately Levan Bakir thought it would be necessary to put a few little spins on it and kind of complicate it when it didn't need complication, because when it complicates itself, then you start to think to yourself, okay, I've seen this kind of thing before, this is getting very generic. Characters are making decisions and doing things that are completely ridiculous, that completely take you out of the film. You disconnect yourself after that. After you've connected yourself, the director has hooked you in, but then he allows you to be released when the movie starts to go down a very ridiculous path. And there were moments in this film where I just thought to myself, why did you do this? Because the actual premise of the film was very unique, very creative, but then it goes down a generic path. And you know how this movie is going to unfold, and I thought it was a very dark ending, but it didn't need to come to that ending. It could have just gone down a different path and it would have been an absolutely fantastic film. I thought the script was lacking from the start. As I said, the acting was okay, but the acting was as good as the script allowed it. And so the script was okay in some instances, but then it was really bad in others. And I just thought, okay, that line was cringeworthy. And so this is basically the problem with the film, is that it lacks consistency. And I think the title, Landmine Goes Click, sums it up perfectly, is that you would initially think this is a silly film, but then it goes serious, but then it goes silly towards the end. So it's that up and down consistency that prevents this film from being a very enjoyable film. But having said that, it is very dark. A lot of extreme horror fans will get something out of this movie, but unfortunately for me, it was just a completely wasted opportunity that I would not recommend. So overall, for Landmine Goes Click, I was disappointed based on the fact that it actually had the grounds to be a very good movie, but it lets itself down by going down a very generic sort of Hollywood path. So it's unfortunate, but that's life, I guess. So overall, for Landmine Goes Click, I'm going to give it 2 stars, disappointing. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.